Test, test, test. The Committee of the Whole is now called to order. Colleagues, we completed the deliberations on revenues, so we are now on floor amendments. I don't see Senator Taitigui, so we'll come back to her amendment. Vice, can you take the chair, please? Oh, there. Okay. 1 minute recess, and Senator Taitigui, we're on your amendment. Committee of the Whole is now called back to order. Colleagues, we're on floor amendments on revenues. The first is an amendment by Senator Taitigui. It's SB 266 TTT L1 24P5. Senator Taitigui, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues. Good morning. It's ironic that this particular amendment, I apologize to my colleagues for being a little late. I was outside talking to constituents and, regarding this amendment. But, I'll go through it. And first, I proffer an amendment to strengthen the Guam's collection of the BPT revenue from the military contracts performed here on island. So as you remember, colleagues, last year I placed and this body supported a provision in the budget to preserve the 5% BPT on military contracts over $100 million. That was an important step because the FY26 budget lowered the general BPT rate to 4.5% with a future reduction in this one to now 4%. But after reviewing the state of our economy and the last financial report, I strongly believe we should remove the 10 million threshold. And this amendment does just that. If everyone looks at the CRER report, we've noticed that, of course, the BPT has lessened, but withholding and corporate tax has gone up considerably. And though I talked to Lester about is this attributed to at least keeping that 5% for this military contracts? Now, it's military buildup contracts, my colleagues. Before I came in here, I was stopped by two individuals talking about, oh, we don't support this. And I explained the reason why this should be supported. I reminded the individuals about the 4 pillars when the military buildup first came in play in 2008. And the reason why they put that pillar there, because of these concessions between the military and the government of Guam, because the impact it will have on our people. And that this money will generate revenue for our island to help our infrastructures, help build our schools, our roads that are going to be impacted by the additional increase in population of military buildup. So a lot of people bought into that, saying, you know, it's right. That's income coming into our island to help fix areas such as, you know, infrastructure, to provide roads to homes that are still, you know, people going home in gravel and dirt roads, where housing is so expensive now. Maybe the government now can afford the infrastructure to bring water and power so that people can utilize their land to build their homes. Excuse me. These are some of the areas in which this military buildup was going to bring to our people. But you know what the best part about it was? That the BPT that are attached to any military buildup contract was going to be paid by DOD. It's in the contract. So if Black Construction or Paris Brothers or Joe Tenorio's construction company gets a military buildup contract, they do not pay the BPT. It's DOD that pays the BPT. Now let's say a subcontractor wants to, Joe Tenorio's construction company wants to hire John Cruz. John Cruz is not going to have to avail himself of paying a BPT because you can't do double taxation. It's illegal. So that covers the subcontractors. But what we're doing by putting a threshold of $10 million on military contracts that are bound to soon, and in 5 years, we are going to miss the boat. The whole nemesis of military contract was to help our island adjust to the impact of this. Not just the impact, but to help us get ahead with infrastructure, with schools. Because I can tell you, any person that comes into Guam from the military, they don't have to go to DOD schools, DODEA schools. They can go to GW. They can go to the University of Guam. They can avail themselves of all these areas. So colleagues, and as I talked these two individuals, I said, okay, so what are you saying that's wrong? They couldn't explain. After I explained to them, they could not explain why it's bad.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment.
So I'm asking again my colleagues to remove the threshold because, like I said, whether it's $10 million or $10, DOD pays the 5% BPT, not the people. So I'm asking my colleagues, please to support this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, anyone wish to speak on the amendment? On the Tadigui amendment, Senator Parkinson, you recognize.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the Tadigui amendment. You know, there has been a lot of talk for a lot of years about how this military buildup is going to bring extra tax revenue to the island. And now the military buildup is here. It's happening in full swing. And as the retiring speaker mentioned, The 5% is built into these contracts. So when we made the switch from 5% to 4.5% carte blanche for everybody, we painted with so broad a brush that we gave the military buildup the same consideration that we would give a mom and pop store, which is just inherently doesn't make sense. The military buildup is a temporary thing that's happening, and we should be taking advantage of it while it's happening. And so I absolutely agree with this amendment. In fact, if I had my way, we should consider raising the BPT on military contracts, because it is a temporary thing that is happening. What was the whole point of selling this to our island for extra tax revenue? Then when the time actually comes, we bend over backwards to give them a 20% haircut on their taxes. Doesn't make any sense. The military buildup is something that is happening. By not taking advantage of it, by not reaping the tax benefits of it, we are shortchanging our island. We are using our military buildup funding right now, my people of Guam, to basically subsidize tax cuts for the top 10% of businesses. Businesses with millions of dollars in revenue. The military industrial complex, the military buildup, is about a third of the island's $9 billion economy. And we gave them the same tax cuts for why? And now we're putting in this arbitrary line of $10 million. All that does is it's going to cause these contractors to try and game the system. If we're going to tax them, let's tax them. Let's not put in these arbitrary thresholds. Let's use these resources to make our island better. There are going to be negative impacts to the military buildup. Part of the reason we have these taxes is to offset and mitigate those factors. But if we are shortchanging ourselves, then that's going to come out on our people too. So, at this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment and change the collected tax rate from 5% to 6% for any military contract, and I'd like to discuss that amendment.
You may proceed. You may proceed on your amendment to the amendment.
My amendments are amendments?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I was just waiting for the timekeeper
Yeah,
to...
you have an opportunity to close. So you've moved the amendment, and so we'll open the floor for the amendment now.
Okay, can I open on the amendment before it goes around?
Sure.
Okay. And so I want to introduce this amendment to really open this discussion to the body on what does it mean when we say we want to take advantage of the military buildup for the betterment of our community. Because this is what it means for me. It means we raise the taxes on military contracts and we use it to improve schools, to improve hospitals, to improve public safety, to improve our environment, to fix problems associated with the buildup that we didn't foresee. I don't know if this amendment has a chance at all of passing. But I think this is an important conversation for us to have. Because we are in the midst of the military buildup now. It's a military buildup we all know and we all concede that it is temporary. So if it is temporary, why not make hay while the sun is shining? Why not use these resources? That money is coming to Guam, whether this tax is at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%. The United States government has a vested national security interest to invest these dollars here on Guam. If we raise the taxes on military contracts, these contracts aren't going to go somewhere else. These contracts are for Guam specifically. So let's I want to open up the floor here. I want to open up this amendment. Let's talk about what it's going to be meaning to us to take advantage of the military buildup. Because going from a 4.5% tax rate to a 4% tax rate and giving that to the military buildup as well, up to $10 million, that seems like the military buildup is taking advantage of us. How do we make this a more equitable situation? If it's not doing something like this, like raising the taxes on military contracts only, contracts that the BPT specifically gets paid by DOD, then what's the issue? What is stopping us from doing it? Because normally the refrain is that we're going to scare off investment, that we're going to scare off business. But we have a captive audience. The United States military is going to invest because of the war games that they are having with China, for the posturing that they are doing on what I could only imagine is World War III. So if that money is going to be spent here, let us take advantage of it. Like, I understand the impulse to be business friendly, but that impulse is supposed to serve a practical reason, and that reason is we're not trying to scare away the business to go somewhere else. But once again, with the military buildup, we have a captive client. If we raise our rates here, the military is not going to start suddenly building somewhere else. We know that Guam is strategically important like that. And we need to carry ourselves like we are important, like we do have the leverage to ask for things like this, to demand things like this on behalf of our people of Guam. To just roll over and capitulate because of some reflex to always capitulate to big business is wrong. This military buildup itself is a third, more than a third, of the island's economy. That's a real thing. That was a shocking number to me. Of our $9 billion economy here on Guam, a third of it is the military buildup. Think about that. Everything you've ever seen on the island get built, the military buildup is like 50% of that in the short time it's been here. And if it's truly temporary, then this increase in the tax rate will be temporary as well. It will sunset itself automatically when the military buildup ends. So I ask my colleagues, what does it mean to you when we say we're going to take advantage of the military buildup to better our island? Because that's what it means to me, and I hope my colleagues will support me in raising taxes on the military contractors that are changing the face of our island before our very eyes, and at least extract some benefit for the benefit of our people of Guam. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Parkinson Amendment? Senator Taitigui, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my colleague, Senator from Mamgang Totomaiti, for that recommendation because, it's a military buildup that's not going to be here much longer. The changes in the world that are happening right now are shifting big time, and that shift is now moving a lot of the military stockpile as well as build up to areas that are closer to what they say the enemy. We are the, first line of defense? No, we are not actually the first line of defense. First line of defense are places like Japan, Korea, where our military bases are there. We have people stationed there. We're almost like in the second line. You know, I wanted to put this in my closing, but Admiral Papar had went up to Congress recently asking for $160 billion for funding to increase their stockpile as well as other military buildup. And within that $160 billion, it was identified that $906 million, not billion, but million, was to be dedicated to Guam. 906 million to continue to address whatever was taken during the Iran crisis. And we're starting to see a huge shift. So that tells us how much more is the military, DOD, is going to invest in the island, or even invest in the war. There's not a war, but any kind of epic fury or anything that's moving forward, or addressing how we're going to monitor China and what they're doing and trying to keep up with China's stockpile versus ours. Money is shifting. It's not going to be very much longer that it will stop on Guam. They're already my colleagues. And I say this as the oversight chair of the military buildup, that I keep an eye on, a keen eye on what has been going on in the world and what is happening to our island when it comes to the military buildup. And now they're planning to shift rotations of those who are coming to Guam every 6 months, which means Section 30 money is not going to be what we anticipated. It's going to be for 4,000 Marines. Because if they're only here for 6 months on a rotational basis, we're not going to avail ourselves of those taxes that we anticipated to get. That's another shortfall. This military buildup is turning and shifting. 4 to 5 more years, that's it. And you guys know that goes by really quick, as you see, especially the first-timers in this legislature, how quickly 2 years goes by, really quick. I respect his amendment, but when this military buildup came, contracts were pushed out at 5% BPT. I think at 4% actually, if you go back where it used to be GRTs, now it's BPT, it was 4%, and then it moved into 5% later on with the BPT definition. But that was across the board to everybody on Guam, everybody on Guam. I think increasing it might not be conducive, maybe considered a little unfair. So I do appreciate, his understanding of how it is important to maintain that agreement we had back in 2008 on how this military buildup is supposed to help our island, our people. So I have to respectfully, with all due respect to my good colleague, to object to that amendment.
On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the Parkinson Amendment? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mananas Siduos, Mr. Chair, it's so good to see you on a Saturday morning. And Mananas Siduos to my colleagues and to the people of Guam watching on the YouTube, as well as to our guests watching the session in the balcony. I stand in support of the amendment. It's very consistent with the messaging that Senator Parkinson and I had in the last fiscal year budget discussions. We get these press releases from our delegate, and a lot of times they talk about these billion-dollar projects that are included in the NDAA. You know, just one of these projects equals, in some cases, our entire budget of the government. And so as we read these press releases and they celebrate the potential building of a, you know, multi-billion-dollar missile defense system or a barracks for hundreds of millions of dollars, as I read those releases, I often scratch my head and wonder, what does this mean for Tanana and Tunpete? What does this mean for Primo Joe? What does this mean for Chalu Fred? What does it mean when we see these huge amounts of money and these huge projects being awarded to Guam, awarded to big construction companies that, for the most part, are using imported labor? So although these contracts that we read about, these military buildup contracts, have huge amounts of money attached to them, the return on investment for the people of Guam, because this is something that we are invested in, given the strategic importance of our island that we always hear about, it just doesn't measure up with the results for our people of Guam, because we're not treated like we're strategically important. And so again, while these projects are hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, it means very little for our people unless we capture this revenue. So I commend Senator Titagui and I commend Senator Parkinson for this amendment, although I think it's coming very late in the game. Very, very late in the game. We've lost out on a lot of revenue from these military buildup contracts, revenue that could have been transformative for our island and our people. Basta with this narrow-minded, self-defeating mindset that, oh, Guam is not good enough, our people are not good enough, we have to sassa ourselves, and we have to bend over backwards and do backflips so they can come and do business here. But what good is it if they come and do business here, if that business that they're doing here doesn't lead to improvements for our people? And it's so late in the game that experts in the construction industry are predicting the construction cliff to happen in less than 10 years, which could lead to a reduction, some people say, of $20 million in withholding taxes. So Senator Parkinson is right. These are captive contracts. If we pass this amendment, if we pass Senator Titagui's amendment, these Department of Defense contractors are not going to pack up their carpet bags and take their business somewhere else because they can't. And that's why it's so important for us to change our mindset and stand up for our people, because our people are worth it. Our island is worth it. It's worthy of this investment. We're not talking about taxing the small local businesses because they already receive a reduced rate of business privilege tax. We're talking about increasing taxes on big money contracts so that we can do things for our people. Imagine if we were taxing these contracts at this rate, or even the rate that Senator Titagui is offering. Haggasat years back, we could have done things like put our power underground, build a seawall for our people, give them grants, give them assistance. But instead, we're jumping over dollars to get to pennies. And so I know you're getting the texts from the realtors, from the contractors, and it's disappointing that their texts speak louder than the voices of our people who are struggling and asking for help, asking for worthy investment because they're worth it. So thank you, Senator Parkinson, for this amendment. Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair.
On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone wish to speak? On the Parkinson Amendment, to the amendment. Senator Chalai, you recognize.
Sidus Masi. I just want to say that I agree with the rationale of Senator Parkinson and my colleagues about how we have been told, and it's the chamber forums that are telling us that this military buildup, the revenue that we are receiving is going to be cut off, and it's not going to be gradual, it's going to be a cliff in 5 years or less. And very reputable contractors, actually, are the ones telling us this. And it's their recommendation that Guam take advantage of the revenue that we are able to get from this build-up construction period and put that aside and use it for when we turn to the civilian period again, hopefully, where we can bring contractors to work for the people of Guam, to build their houses, to build transportation, to put their power underground, as my colleague said, to improve their schools and the hospitals. All of that is going to require money. And we talk a lot about pivoting to new businesses, how we must expand our economy to, while we have a good source of revenue here with this military contracting, we have to pivot our economy to other industries. Those are the industries that we need to incentivize. Those are the industries that might not be so eager to come, that might need investment, not just by themselves, but by us, the government, to help them to establish themselves here, to help us partner with them. And that is an investment, I think, that everybody should agree on. That they are the ones that might need the enticement. And I agree with the author of this amendment that these contractors, they don't need the enticement. And as the author of the main amendment said, this tax has been built into the contracts that they have. They're covered. And if subcontractors qualify for other rates, these contractors have not been identified, but when we did get the data from Revenue Tax, we were told, we got a breakdown of how many contractors there were that were not under the, together with the 90%, the 10% that do not get the 3% tax rate. There's only 10% of the companies on Guam. 1,071 of those make under 2 million. 680 of those make over 2 million. They receive 3 billion in exemptions already. So they are already receiving tax exemptions. Not just the federal tax exemptions or the federal incentives, but in local exemptions. So, I don't know if it's a personal thing that, we want to just feel sorry for them, but they are business people. They came here willingly, knowing exactly what they were facing, built it into their contracts, and are doing very well. We, on the other hand, have a population that we cannot house. We have a growing homelessness problem. We have schools that have not been built or cannot be fixed unless we invest in them. And we are looking to build a $1 billion hospital that this is the investment into the people of Guam that we need to make.
On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Parkinson Amendment? To the amendment. On the Parkinson Amendment to the amendment, anyone wish to speak? Senator Parkinson, you can close on your amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's quite a different experience for myself being in the minority because, you know, aside from the lack of institutional power, it sees the difference in the behavior of my colleagues. Where once their voices would sing out in these halls using as much time as possible to let their views be heard, now with real authority and real power at their disposal, they remain silent. And that's disappointing to me. Because my people of Guam, let me level set you on how important Guam is to the planning of the federal government and the United States military. We are, without hyperbole, probably the most important military base in the world. That's how much of a capture we have on these military contractors. We are strategically important because of our location. You can't, that's not a fungible thing. They can't just pull up their stakes and go somewhere else that has just as much strategic value to them as Guam does. And so when the military and the United States government and the Department of War invest in Guam, it's not because of their better angels. It's because they see value for themselves. And they are here to take advantage of our island for their benefit, to advance their interest. And the deal is supposed to be that we are to use the revenues from this military buildup to make this a win-win situation, that we could use these extra revenues and all these things that are being built up in our community in ways that can help us as well. But if we are not properly taxing the military buildup, then what was it all for? What were we doing? And I hear the objections of the original author for this amendment, but those same arguments will be used against your position as well. That right now everyone else is paying 4.5%. It's inherently unfair that everyone else is paying 5%. But if we're going to do a tiered tax system of some kind, then that's what happens. And I agree that these two things should not be taxed at the same rate. My local World Market down the street from my house should not be sharing the same tax rate as a major firm from the world coming into Guam, making a huge ecological and financial footprint on this island that we are not adequately taking advantage of. We have an opportunity here to express to our people of Guam through our legislation what it means to take advantage of the military buildup so that the military buildup doesn't take advantage of us. We are derelict in our duties if we do not take advantage of this temporary measure. If we're worried about this becoming some sort of permanent tax, I understand that. But every sign we see says that the buildup from the military is going to reach a cliff. It's going to reach an end. By those very circumstances, that by definition makes this a temporary tax as well. A temporary tax on businesses that cannot go anywhere else. These contracts that they are putting out are specifically for Guam and nowhere else. So I ask, if we don't take advantage of it like this, then how do we take advantage of it? This is how I want to do it. And I ask my colleagues to support this way of doing it. Because if it's not this, then how? Do we just let the military buildup come in, greatly affect our community, and extract no resources to benefit our own? We could use the money from this military buildup as seed money to start new industries, whatever those industries may be. It takes money to make money. It takes money to start new industries. So I ask my colleagues to please support this amendment. Let's tax the military buildup, and let's do it right while we still have time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the Parkinson Amendment, there has been an objection. All those in favor of the Parkinson Amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. On the main amendment, Tadigui Amendment, anyone wish to speak? Your time is up, Senator. On the main amendment,
My time is up on the
when
main.
you move an amendment, and you open and close, you're done on the amendment to amendment because you've chosen that time to speak on the amendment. We don't keep that time, Senator. Once you move an amendment, then your time is up. On the Tadigui Amendment, anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Senator Parrish, you're recognized.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. That's not how we do it. We always go back to the time left.
Senator, we don't record that. We set a new clock for you to move an amendment to the amendment, which gives you extra time to open and close on your amendment. Whenever you moved, then wait until the end of the time next time when you move an amendment to the amendment. That's the only way to use all of your time. Senator Parrish, you're recognized. That's the ruling of the chair. Senator Parrish, you're recognized.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I challenge that ruling. That is a made-up rule. That's not at all. They're entitled to their time.
Yes, please make a motion to overrule the chair.
I move that. I just want some
All in
order in
favor
here.
of
I don't want the
overruling
rules
the
to
chair?
keep changing every time you're the
Yes.
chairperson.
There
of
is
the
a
committee.
motion to overrule the chair. All in favor of overruling the chair, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion failed. Senator Parrish, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out some of the information provided by the public auditor. At one point, he estimated that we are leaking about $40 million from military contractors. And some of the information in the audit stated that if you look at what the sample that they have done amongst 16 contractors from the years 2016 to 2020, the GR gross receipts range, so as far as collection on taxes, range from 0.19% to 4.31% only. And that was below the 4% rate that was effective August 2005 and a 5% rate effective April 1st, 2018. So when you look at it, you know, there is a reduction in collections and a leakage of BPT collections. The other thing they pointed out was that prime contractors are not eligible for exemptions, but some subcontractors are eligible for exemptions. And so, unfortunately, through the enforcement capacity of DRT, they're unable to really kind of keep up to date with who's a contractor, the prime contractor and the subcontractor, which eventually resulted in the leakage of the collection of BPT. So this is a key information when we're thinking about, you know, ensuring that we are getting the taxes that are due to the people of Guam for business that is done by military for military contracts. You know, we are told that the military buildup will be ending soon. There is a cliff. And Dr. Roseanne Jones says that we need to make the most of this time before that cliff occurs in order to diversify our economy. And so, as the proffer of the amendment stated, many of the contracts, the taxation's already written in the contracts, and DOD is actually paying for it. It's not, you know, the businesses themselves. It's basically, it's already integrated into the contract. And so I think if we really want to, you know, get ahead of the game, you know, rather than wait to see the impacts fall on us, I think it's prudent and wise to utilize these funds. And I just did a quick calculation. You know, if it's $906 million, you know, what we're talking about is 45 million. 45 million versus the 36 million. Of course, that's a $9 million difference, but I mean, that 9 million can go towards, as you've seen in the committee of the whole, they need that for child care services. So I think that, you know, there's no loss here in regards to maintaining a BPT rate for the military contractors at 5%. You know, but there is great loss to our community. And so I think that, you know, there's other deficiencies that the auditor pointed out in regards to military collection of BPT from military contractors. You know, it could potentially be a higher leakage due to the capacity, taxation enforcement capacity by DRT, and the inability to really tie into the IRS platform. You know, it's unfortunate because in the U.S., for say if you make money in Nevada, they can, and you live in Massachusetts, they can track that. But here in Guam, there's a wall because, you know, some of these businesses have different names and they don't file. I mean, that's one of the findings of the public auditor is that some of these businesses don't file business. They don't have a valid business license here, but yet they get to reap the benefits. So this is really a mechanism for us to regain some of the loss and the leakage that is due to Guam. And I must say, it's a very modest mechanism if we're talking 45 million. But if you're looking at a drop of 9 million, it really is a modest means to regain some of the loss when in fact, it's been estimated at over $40 million. We've leaked thus far and possibly more. So if we really are thinking about, you know, the long-term support of our community, this is really a modest mechanism.
Thank you, Senator. On the Tadigui Amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Tadigui Amendment? Senator Gumatauto, you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this is a dangerous amendment. We all know that tourism is at its weakest point as an industry in over 50 years. Federal expenditure across the island is what is keeping our economy afloat today. The North American Industry Classification System codes list small businesses and small business size standards matched to industry. This in turn determines the Small Business Administration size standard. Many are capped at $10 to $20 million in annual revenue to qualify as a small business. Common NAICS codes near the $10 million threshold, landscaping at $9.5 million, architectural services and office furniture, equipment merchant wholesalers at $10 million, administrative management and general management consulting, and security system services both at $12.5 million. Engineering services tops at $16.5 million. These are just a sampling. 1,012 industries. Mr. Chairman, just 3,477 total employer business establishments, according to the latest SBA Guam Small Business Profile, do business here, both on base and off. They are already challenged to grow in 2026. For over 15 years, this important business model has been more than compromised. The 2013 sequester for all Department of Defense contracts, the 2019 global pandemic, the 2021 sequester for DoD contracts, Typhoon Mawar in 2023, and back-to-back storms this year. This amendment would create another challenge. 53,941 Guam residents, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers and sisters, working for Guam-based companies like Guam Bakery, Ambrose Inc., Cars Plus, Pacific Grocers, Pacific Unlimited, Benson, Guam Enterprises. The list is longer. These and others would be impacted. Many of these companies do work both inside and outside the fences of Guam's military installations. Did they get a chance to share their thoughts here? No, they did not. That is our role, and I accept that. What I will not accept is an attempt to claw more money from the engine of this economy out of fear that the buildup is going away. This effort started way before a 2004 Defense Policy Review Initiative between the United States and Japan. This effort will continue way past the last light bulb that is installed for the U.S. military in Jigo or in Sumai, from an agreement that started just over 20 years ago. Don't sink our work on and off base. We need to build them up, not bring them down. I did not support this particular policy change last fiscal year targeting military contractors. I do not support this amendment today, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Guptauto. On the tie degree amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the tie degree amendment? Senator Lujan, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Good Saturday morning to everybody. I as well rise in opposition to this amendment, Mr. Chair. Is this the message that we really want to send at a time when Guam is experiencing really unprecedented federal investment? As I said last night, most of our hotels are up for sale, and federal spending is really what's keeping, if not most of them, all of them alive at this point, Mr. Chair. You know, since this legislature established an AI task force, I decided to start dabbing a little bit in Chat GPT, right? So I asked a simple question: who are the Guam businesses that could be affected if this proposal reaches military contractors and suppliers? And the answer wasn't just the large construction companies, and was already mentioned by the previous speaker, of course, the good senator from Talvovo, Senator Sean Guptauto. Let me reiterate that list. The list included Guam Bakery, American Bakery, Mid-Pacific Far East, Pacific Grocers, Ambrose, Triple J, Atkins Kroll, Cars Plus, Morrico Equipment, Benson Guam Enterprises, Pacific Unlimited, Guam Industrial Services, GTA, Docomo, Guam Security Agency, Guam Human Resources Services, along with local engineering firms, architects, surveyors, accountants, trucking companies, equipment rental companies, electricians, plumbers, HVAC contractors, and countless other small businesses that support military projects every single day. Mr. Chairman, these aren't faceless corporations. These are Guam businesses. These are businesses that employ our neighbors, sponsor Little League teams, support our nonprofits, and keep our economy moving. The military buildup should be an opportunity for our local businesses, not a reason to single them out with higher tax rate, Mr. Chair. Just a short time ago, the legislature came together to lower the business privilege tax to 4%. We did that because we believe government doesn't create prosperity. Our private sector does. We wanted Guam to be more competitive. We wanted business to invest, expand, hire, and grow. Now we're considering reversing the course because this government can't control itself but must spend, spend, and spend. If the concern is ensuring that the very large defense contractors pay their fair share, then let's have that conversation. But a broad tax increase on military-related commerce risks reaching far beyond the largest contractors and into Guam's local business community. What happens when a local bakery supplies bread to a military dining facility? What happens to a local trucking company that delivers materials to a defense project? What happens to a local engineering firm who performs a survey? A local security company guards a work site. Every additional tax becomes another cost of doing business here, Mr. Chair. and businesses don't absorb costs forever. They pass them along through higher prices, reduce hiring, small investments, or fewer opportunities for local workers. So, Mr. Chair, Guam has spent years trying to position itself as a premier destination for defense investment in the Pacific. We should be doing everything we can to encourage local participation in that growth, not making Guam businesses less competitive than they are today. Mr. Chairman, again, look around us. Businesses are leaving. Instead of enticing, we're saying we're going to tax you to death. And when you talk about big businesses, oh, these big bad companies, put names, put faces to them, like we just did, like the good senator from Talafofo did. Companies that you're saying, big bad companies. When you're talking about big bad companies, you're talking about big bad companies, yeah, such as the American Bakery, Guam Bakeries, right? Mid-Pacific, Far East, Pacific Grocers, Ambrose, Triple J, Atkins Grow, Cars Plus, Morico Equipment, Benson Guam Enterprises, Pacific Unlimited, Guam Industrial Services, GTA, Docomo Pacific, Guam Security Agencies.
Thank you, Senator. Your time is up.
Thank you very much. These are the big bad agencies you're talking about.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Senator Taidwi, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, it just came to my attention, realizing after the discussion, Mr. Chair, this was the wrong amendment that was put in. And it's supposed to say military buildup. But one of my colleagues brought it to my attention. And just to let everyone know, this is not supposed to be military contracts. It's supposed to be military buildup contracts. So I apologize to my colleagues, but another colleague will be making an amendment to incorporate, after everything that says military, will say military buildup. So it only affects the buildup, not the regular contracts, Mr. Chair, that my other two colleagues were talking about. There's no way I wanted to jeopardize that. It's just the buildup. So I just wanted my colleagues to know as they move forward with their discussions that it will be amended to military buildup contracts and not just military contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taidwi. On the Taidwi amendment, any other? Senator Duane, you're recognized.
This is Mossy, Mr. Chair. We look forward to the discussion on a possible amendment to the amendment, but I just want to share the sentiments of the current retiring speaker, and also, you know, to another member who says we don't speak on these things. Sometimes on the outrageous things we don't speak, but when it comes back to the main motion and there's more sanity, we have a conversation about it. Mr. Chair, you know, I want to take a different perspective here. Years ago, when I was before I became a senator in 2011, I was the land management director. And during that time, there was the buildup and the consideration of the buildup, and also building the firing range, and the proposal was for Pauget. And of course our people rose up and said they didn't want it there. But in the meantime, I had meetings with several members as a member of the Civilian Military Task Force, and one of them was General Bice. And when I had that meeting, he said, you know, is there anything we can do to try to, you know, see if this can go forward? Other than that, we'll find our own footprint for the range. And I said, well, you might want to consider helping out the Chamorro Land Trust, maybe a $150 million down payment to build infrastructure and help our people build homes. And when I shared that, Mr. Chair, the outrage that came from members of the legislature during that time was incredible. You know, sometimes we look a gift horse in the mouth when we talk a lot of times about wanting to help our people. And I say that to say this, Mr. Chair. We sit on the floor here and we want to raise this money because we talk about, because we need to build housing, because we need to build infrastructure, because our people need this and our people need that. What are we arguing about for the last 7 years, particularly of this administration, with millions and millions of dollars pouring in? And what have we grown? The government. What have we moved on? Nothing. Chamorro Land Trust leases? No. What have we gotten? We're trying to make a budget right now that's reasonable to constrain government, to continue to help our suffering businesses, and some members on this floor call them is fat cats who want to put money in their pocket. They don't talk about the people and the lives that are behind that, the jobs, the 50-some thousand jobs on this island that rely on those companies' survival. They don't talk about not even understanding. Most of these people have never signed the front of a check. They've all signed the back of the check. They don't know what businesses go through every day to try to survive. Some read the budget by candlelight. A lot of businesses right now are trying to figure out how to survive by candlelight. Mr. Chair, I say that to say this. If we're serious about these kind of things, why don't we talk about this in the context of a public benefit at some point? Sit down with our congressmen. Sit down with the military. Talk about how we can get additional resources to the island by expressing our concerns, by ensuring that we're having a proper conversation, that if they do write a check, it's for housing, for infrastructure, for other public benefits that we make our case for, other than the revenue we're getting now that we're half the time not spending properly to take care of our people. But that's not it. Because just like other amendments that are going to pop up in here, I'm going to show everybody how I can give them something from taxpayers' dollars that's supposed to run the government, that's supposed to bring efficiency, that's supposed to bring services, that's supposed to bring public safety, that's supposed to bring education. But yet, what have we done? Most of the time, more government, more government. We're not having a logical conversation about this, Mr. Chair. We're having a give me more money conversation about this. And our neighbors that are here are bad neighbors. The businesses are evil. Pitting our community against each other, trying to make political points instead of having salient conversations about public benefit. That's my problem, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I yield my time to the senator.
Speaker Blas yields his time to you, Senator Duenas.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker. So yes, we can go in and entertain an amendment to the amendment and see what that might mean. But the fact remains the same. The fact remains the same. The Chamber of Commerce, yes. A group of businesses, we talk about how only certain amounts of those businesses actually pay that tax. What does that mean, Mr. Chair? Those businesses, by and large, are most of the businesses that employ the most people on this island. And they also, yes, pay not only at that rate, but they pay exponentially more because they pay a lot more taxes. This is the same argument stateside. Tax, 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 tax. Tax the rich. What does it really mean? When you go down that road, you're taxing the individuals that create the wealth for everybody else. I was talking to an evil business person earlier that basically said, you keep going down this road, that it trickles down to our business, public benefit, different things that you want to give giveaways for that you're going to need tax dollars for. What does that do for me when my margins are 1%, 2%, 3%, but I supply insurance to my employees? That insurance, that benefit that I might give them could be $500,000, $800,000 a month. But if I got to pay that because you're putting your finger on me, I have to go to that employee and say, I'll try my best. Maybe I'm only going to be able to kick in $300 or $400. Now you're going to come up now with $700 to help you pay your insurance if you want to keep it. Because I love that benefit I was giving you. I still want to employ you. but I can't pay that insurance. You know, Mr. Chair, that could be a mother with 3 children. So we all talk about how the government's going to help people when we got programs, and God bless them, federal programs and other programs, GURA, Medicaid, all the other stuff we're going to talk about continuously. We talk about that, but we don't talk about these people. Go to these, I know you do, because you're a small business, Mr. Chair. Go to these businesses and look at them and talk to them. Don't just talk about them. Talk to their employees, because I do it. And they will tell you how much they've had trepidation before. When they know their businesses are on the edge, they can see the stress on their bosses and think, gosh, I hope it's not me today. Or I hope they're not going to have this meeting that we have to say, listen, I'd love to give you a raise, but I got to freeze everything for the rest of this year just to keep your jobs. That's what I'm trying to say, Mr. Chair. I can guarantee you from some of the sentiment on this floor, there's a lot of people here that have not had to face that. Once again, look at the labor report. 55,000 people in our private sector. We have close to 12,000 government employees. And by and large, of course, we rely on them. And they're hardworking and they keep our services going. But exponentially, they have more pay and more benefits, which is good and fine. But it's supported by the taxes of the 55,000, as well as their taxes, the 55,000 employees that are paying their taxes and the businesses that are paying their taxes to keep this business afloat. Now, I know we're talking about military contracts, but once again, it all trickles down. Those contractors do business in this community too. They buy from companies, they will pay that, they will extend that down. So, Mr. Chair, the bottom line is that when we do sweeping change like this without real studies and not talk about saying, let's talk about public benefit, which is a real conversation, we're going to levy a tax on you, and we don't really know where the hell the money's going. We say we do, but the examples are just not there. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I object to the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. On the Title amendment, any others? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair. Boy, my dear people of Guam, it's rich when we have colleagues in here talk about making sweeping changes with no data, like the business privilege tax rollback of 1% that erased $80 million of revenue for critical public services, like those kind of sweeping changes. It's really philosophical. You know, my colleagues say, oh, how many of you in here have ever signed the front of a check? You've only signed the back of the check. How many of you in here have signed the back of a check and it's already gone? It's already gone because you've got so many bills. You sign the back of a check, it's gone, and then you go, look, where can you borrow money to get by? Because so many of our people live paycheck to paycheck. And if you've experienced this, Speaker, then si Dios masi. But it's really about perspective. They want to say that if we're trying to stick up for our people and get worthy investments for our island, that we're saying the businesses are evil. Nobody ever said that. In fact, if you go back, we tried to do a tiered implementation of the business privilege tax reduction. And so I stand in support of the amendment, and I'd like to just add, if it's okay with the author, the word build-up there on the gross income of any military build-up contract, if the chair would indulge, because in the actual budget bill, and my colleague who is using ChatGPT, you have to tell ChatGPT that the wholesalers don't pay tax. But in the actual bill, it reads any military contract exceeding $10 million. So while my colleagues over here are talking about, oh, we're going to tax the businesses, their own bill taxes any military contract exceeding $10 million. And so I'd like to, Mr. Chair, if you'll allow it, to add the word buildup after the word military in the amendment. You know, Speaker Blas was talking about internet as a convenience, and they didn't need it 30 years ago, and that's because this is how they did it 30 years ago. They were allowed to amend on the fly. Now, we've moved all of our processes to digital, so we can't do it like how they did it 30 years ago, but if you'll indulge, Mr. Chair, I would like to amend the amendment so that we could be clear that we're discussing military buildup related contracts, sir.
On the Barnett amendment to the amendment, Senator Tadigue, you recognize.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank my colleague, Senator Barnett, for making that change. Now I understand why those two individuals I spoke to earlier was concerned about if a military member comes to Guam and buys a home from one of our people, you know, who are local people here, that they would have to pay the 5%. And I kept reiterating to everybody, military buildup, which is not going to be here very much longer. Like I said, the shift in military is happening today, and it changes all the time. This is about an agreement, like I mentioned, the 4 pillars, the agreement because of this buildup, what it's going to impact our island. By no means am I trying to impact our local businesses here at all. And even so, American Bakery, I don't think, has a $10 million contract with the military. And I don't think all those other agencies or companies that were discussed earlier has 10 million and over contracts with the military. Those contracts are for larger scales, dealing with the building of the down, what is that one? Happening in NCS. Cam blocks. That's like a whole city down there. We were just recently there. And what's happening on Anderson Air Force Base with all the hangars. And these hangars are in the millions, hundreds of millions to build these hangars. Those are the things that we're trying to capture, not the small businesses, which are not even affected currently right now. It's the bigger contracts. However, there are some military buildup contracts that are below 10 million. And we need to capture every amount we can get before this military buildup leaves this island. So this amendment is meant to capture that, proffered by Senator from Jotnya. Captures the essence of what we're trying to do here, the military buildup. So I stand in full support of that amendment so that those military members who come to this island, who want to buy property, or military members who are coming to Guam who want to open a business on this island, we encourage that. This is not about them. So again, I stand in full support of this amendment to change it to military buildup and not military contracts. Thank you.
On the Barnett amendment, Senator Parkinson, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's interesting, the discussion that we're having here on the floor, that the position of some members of this chamber is that the very concept of a different consideration for the tax rate of military businesses is unfathomable, unthinkable, a ridiculous idea. Well, why is that a ridiculous idea? The retiring speaker is right that this is a temporary event, this military buildup, and we need to take advantage of it. There's so much straw manning of arguments going on this floor because it's not engaging with the substance of it. I never called the businesses evil, never once demonized them. I talked about the impacts of the military buildup on our island and making sure we extract a fair value to mitigate the effects of the military buildup on our island. We have record withholding tax and BPT and corporate tax. That means people are making money on this island. It is happening. Except the benefits of all that prosperity that's coming from the military buildup is not reaching everyone on this island. It's reaching the few and the well-connected who have people in there advocating for cuts in their taxes when they don't even pay it, when the Department of Defense is the one that pays that tab. We are going over here trying to hamstring ourselves for what? We're here to serve the people of Guam, not the military contractors from the States trying to change our island. It's really interesting how we use the small businesses of our island as shields, as rhetorical shields. We're talking about businesses with revenues of the millions of dollars, and you want to throw around American bakery like that's who we're going after. Like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The people of Guam know that's a ridiculous thing. We are here to try and extract fair value from the multi-billion-dollar defense industry that is happening on our island. Think about all the industry you've ever seen on Guam in your entire lifetime. And in the few short years the military buildup has been happening, they amount to about a third of our entire Guam economy. Potentially more in coming years if tensions in the Pacific continue to heat up. And I don't see things cooling down in our future. But instead of using these resources to mitigate some of the dangers, instead of investing in things like civilian defense and dual-use facilities in case we are attacked, instead of hardening our infrastructure, instead of spreading out our healthcare infrastructure so that we are not vulnerable, we are instead using our time and our effort and our energy to cut taxes for multi-million-dollar military buildup businesses. After years and years and years and years of rhetoric of let's take advantage of the military buildup, it is going to bring all this prosperity and tax revenue to the island. But now here we are, and we don't want to collect the tax revenue. We want to use American bakery as justification to give Raytheon or whatever big military company comes out to the island the same tax considerations as World Market and MTM. That doesn't make any sense. We are supposed to be advocating for the best interest of our island, not for the best interest of military contractors. I implore this body to keep your priorities straight, and I ask my colleagues to support the Taitagui Amendment overall. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the Barnett Amendment, anyone wish to speak? On the Barnett Amendment. Senator Barnett, you can close.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to close, and Sidus Masi to my colleagues who rose and spoke in support of the amendment. And I agree with the retiring speaker. I don't think we were elected to come in here and defend with all our might the big bad military contractors who come from off island and make hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars here. You know, my colleagues keep throwing around the word take advantage of these military buildup projects and you know, capture the revenue from these, you know, massive big dollar projects. And I agree we need to take advantage, but I don't like the words take advantage because I think it's more about receiving what is our fair share. If we really believe that we're worth it and we deserve worthy investment, then let's support this amendment. My colleagues are saying, let's have the conversation. We're having the conversation right now. We're having the conversation right now. And I think it's reasonable if you're an off-island military, Department of Defense contractor, you're listed on the NASDAQ, you come to Guam to do a project, the DOD is already embedded, they're going to pay the tax. I think it's very reasonable to say that if you make more, you should pay more. If you make hundreds of millions of dollars on these contracts, then you should pay a meaningful rate so that when all the dust settles and we're falling down the construction cliff, at least we as elected leaders can say that we fought for Guam. We fought for Guam. We didn't fight for Raytheon or Halliburton or Blackwell. We fought for Guam. We fought for meaningful investment, a meaningful tax rate for these Department of Defense military buildup related contracts. Not trying to tax the people who are delivering donuts to Naval Station. That's ridiculous. And that's why we can't have these conversations, because it goes back to the perspective, the narrow-mindedness, tunnel vision on giving tax breaks to the doctors, to the big businesses, even to big tobacco. That's why after 2 years under this majority, we're still looking at the same damn problems. Because the priority has been tax break, tax break, tax break. And I don't know if these tax breaks have led to anything that's going to mean more improvements. What it's led to is a status quo budget. Status quo. Is anyone in this hall happy with status quo? Isn't that why you're all running for governor? Because you want to make Guam better? I think if you want to make Guam better, Fanogi, you have to stand for Guam. Stand for the people who live here, not the people who come here to make money and then they're gone. They're almost gone already. That's why we have to stand for our people. Assert ourselves. And reasonably demand that they come here, they do these big projects, they're going to pay more. The Department of Defense is going to pay more. Federal spending is holding up a lot of our island, and that's why we need to make sure that we tax it meaningfully. And so humbly, although we can read the room here, ask for support for my colleagues for this amendment, which again makes it that so any military buildup related contract is taxed at this higher rate as proffered by Senator Taitigui. Mr. Chair.
On the amendment to the amendment, all in favor? Any objection? Objection to the amendment? And all in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please raise your hand. Amendment fails. On the Tadigui amendment,
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, who objected?
Senator Chalahi objected. On the amendment to the amendment, or excuse me, on the main amendment, anybody else wish to speak?
Mr. Chair, can I have like a 1-minute recess, please?
We're finishing the bill.
Right,
On
can I
the
just have a
amendment-
1-minute recess,
On the
please?
main amendment, anybody else wish to speak?
May I actually make a recommendation to reconsider the objection?
There is a motion to reconsider the motion, the previous actions. Is there an objection to that? There is an objection. All in favor of reconsidering the previous action of the body? Motion?
To reconsider?
Motion fails to reconsider. On the Tadigui amendment, anyone who has not spoken on the Tadigui amendment wishes to speak.
Why would she
Senator
take-
Chalahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the Tadigui amendment, and for the same reason that the underlying provision was put into the law, that we are going to tax prime contractors for military contracts at a different rate, that should be continued. For the same reasons that it was put in the first place, for the same reasons that Guam legislatures before us have always differentiated between these prime contractors and subcontractors. And that our subcontractors, according to OPA and the audit that was read earlier, they're eligible for a different rate. As subcontractors, they're also eligible for different rates if they're wholesalers, and they're eligible for exemptions. Exemptions if they make less than $500,000. Exemptions if they are banks. They only get taxed on the net. Exemptions even for those who are making over $2 million, exemptions totaling $3 billion for 680 companies. Those are a lot of exemptions that the people of Guam are already giving up. So continuing this provision, I think is prudent. Again, it's what's been recommended to us to save the money that we are making on this buildup and use it to pivot our industries. To pivot them, we need to incentivize. This is where the money comes from. This is where the money comes from for the tax credits for certain businesses down in Tumon to get tax credits to fix up their buildings, while every mom and pop store in our villages are not getting those same tax credits to fix up their stores. Neither are our residences getting tax credits to fix up their stores, even after the typhoon. This is where the money's coming from, or this is the money we need, not only to pivot to new businesses, but to support our existing businesses, such as tourism. Those businesses are going through a hard time, and everybody wants to help them, and we should. Because we can see if we can improve tourism, they are still a good bet for Guam, and we should do that. But we can't do that if we're going to give away our revenue. We can't do anything that we've promised to do to make the people of Guam thrive here by giving up revenue in military contracts. Revenue that, according to the auditor, the military is already paying in the contracts. Revenue that subcontractors are exempt from this provision. This is how we invest. The hotel industry is paying the BPT. They're also paying the hotel occupancy tax at 11%. 11% on hotels, but we are shying away from 5% on million-dollar military contracts. Why? And there's no mention of the burden. And if we can help the people of Guam by getting the revenue that's already being paid for by the military, not even by the contractors themselves, why wouldn't we do that to help the other people of Guam? To help all of them, to fix the roads for these same contractors and subcontractors, to fix the roads for the tourism industry and the flooding, and Matapang Beach that's been washed away. Why not? This is the rate they were taxed at until October of last year. It's not, in order to support the businesses that are supporting Guam,
Thank you, Senator.
we
That's
need
your time.
to
Wrap it up.
take the revenue that the people of Guam are entitled to for the burden that they are carrying
Thank
to
you,
support
Senator.
these businesses.
Thank you,
Jesús Mas.
Senator. On the Tattagui Amendment, anybody else wish to speak on the Tattagui Amendment? Senator Tattagui, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment was not an anti-military amendment. I mentioned earlier to my colleagues that the bill was missing the part where it's supposed to say military buildup. The intention was not to hurt our local business, even though, like I said earlier, this probably doesn't affect the smaller businesses. If somebody comes to buy property here for like $5 million, $5 million, it's not going to affect them. We're talking about big contracts, and that was my intention. But now this amendment that I proffered is taking it down to any amount of money that military contracts, because that amendment failed earlier to allow it for military buildup. Again, that was not my intention. It was for buildup funding, the same money that we were anticipating for on this military buildup that the people of Guam were going to benefit from. That's what my amendment was supposed to be. Unfortunately, it did not get through. To amend my amendment, so that, again, it's just disappointing. But I'm going to try again, Mr. Chair. I have the opportunity in another chapter to introduce another amendment that incorporates military buildup and not all military contracts. So I also want to reiterate, Mr. Chair, that I'm fighting for the people of Guam and what they deserve. Because our people deserve to feel safe, supported and valued. The same opportunity and protections that every other American enjoys. Especially here in the Pacific. We live in the reality that Guam carries a target on her head because of this military buildup. We carry it on our backs. And that means we must prepare, adapt, advocate, even harder for them. And I have not steered away from that, but I don't plan to go into the direction of our small businesses here too, as well. My amendment goes from taking away the threshold to any amount, from 10 million to any amount, but that was not my intention. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I'd like to withdraw my amendment.
On the motion for the amendment to be withdrawn, are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the amendment's been withdrawn. Vice?
Senator Duenas, you're recognized on your amendment.
Susmasi, Mr. Chair, I'm sure everyone has the proper stack, so I don't think we have to go through the reading of all of the numbers on the top. Colleagues, this is a very simple amendment. As we mentioned when we opened up the session to deliberate revenues, there were some technical amendments that we needed to do to be very transparent to the body that did not affect revenues. It was typos, and we want to make sure this is clean and not have to say legal corrected in the end. So there's a very simple amendment. It simply changes and enumerates the proper section of...
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Were these amendments put in before we began the chapter?
Yes.
Yes.
These amendments were in before the chapter.
Correct. There's a timestamp here, and also once again, yeah, go ahead.
SB 266 CMD L 22-26 P15, and this was submitted 7/10/26, 12:30 p.m.
Yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yes. May I proceed, Mr. Chair?
You may proceed.
So once again, colleagues, as we opened up the session on revenues, and you should have that on your desk as well, there was a master amendment that we introduced to correct typographical errors and some enumeration errors within the budget. But once again, it did not change anything materially to the budget in terms of general verbiage, revenues, the budget's balanced. And we're doing this out of full transparency. We could have said have technical and legal corrections, but we're being very transparent. So the amendment, you can see lines through 2 and corrects the section. And that's the simple amendment here before us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. On the Duenas amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Duenas amendment? No senators? Senator?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, so this amendment says, this is an existing language in the bill that it's going to provide excess of the adopted revenue levels.
It's just correcting
Yeah,
section
all
2 to
funds
section
in excess of adopted revenue levels enumerated in section 3.2Q are hereby appropriated to Department of Public Works for flood mitigation measures. We're just talking about the highway fund, right?
Yeah, it just corrects section 2.
I know,
to
so I'm
section
asking,
3. Yes.
is that a reference
Yes.
to the highway fund?
Yes. Yes.
If the author would yield.
The author would you?
Yes, I do yield. Yes, very simple. It's in the revenues, and you could read the section and the applicability. Yes, that's correct.
Yes, and if the author would yield, can you just tell us, we've had this type of a provision in for several years. Has this ever really come to fruition where they receive in excess of what we've appropriated from the highway fund for the roads?
The author did
Because
to
the
that
BBMR said that we are short again.
We have to send that inquiry to the respective agency. We don't have that information in front of us. we're done with revenues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
No answer. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak on the Dueñas amendment? Senator Dueñas, you wish to close?
Simply ask for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. On the Dueñas amendment, any objections? No objections. Dueñas amendment passes.
Okay. The next amendment is colleagues by Senator Barnett. It is Amendment SB 266 CB L17 19 P10 L3-4 P111. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, the amendment is contingent upon my other amendment passing, as it addressed the revenues that reflect what I'm trying to do in SB 266CB.WAPL126P29. So if you would indulge, I'd like to try and move that amendment first. There was just an issue with the...
Give me a moment to
Okay.
confer with the
Thank you.
clerks. The committee of the whole is back in order, so it is correct that we need to reorder the amendments because of their effect. So, colleagues, as you follow along, we are moving now to the Chris Barnett Parkinson Amendment, SB 266 CB WAPL1-26P2-9. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
So just wants to, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak on my amendment, and I'd like to thank Senator Parkinson for co-sponsoring it. What the amendment does is it maintains the business privilege tax rate of 4.5%, and it redirects the $40 million to direct assistance in the form of grants to Guam households. Sir, so the amendment, the first few pages are just maintaining the 4.5%. And then in Section 3, the meat of the amendment, it's the Storm Assistance for You, the SUFU program, which appropriates this BPT revenue to the general fund for the Department of Administration for fiscal year 2027 to fund the SUFU grant program. The appropriation is funded via the retention of the 0.5 business privilege tax revenue. Mr. Chair, as you well know, our people have suffered greatly with not just the passage of Super Typhoon Bavi, but even the passage of Super Typhoon Sinlaku. If you look at your social media, anytime over the last few days, you'll see that a lot of our people are having to dump their food because they haven't had power. In Talafofo, we've been without power for about a week, and I did the same thing this morning because you know how it is when you, after the storm, when you don't have power, you try and find, friends and family who do, and you ask them to hold your food for you. But even when you do all those things and you try and manage without the utilities, at the end of the day, it's tragic that our people have to do this. And many of them have to do it because they simply don't have the means to recover or even prepare for storm events, Mr. Chair. And that's why I humbly ask for the support of my colleagues. This is not stopping the business privilege tax rollback, Mr. Chair, and my dear people of Guam. The business privilege tax has already been rolled back by 0.5% to the tune of $40 million. And I'm asking my colleagues now, because I agree, I don't think we should pit the businesses against the people of Guam. And since we've already given the businesses the help that they needed in the form of that 0.5% business privilege tax rollback, I think it's safe to say that if we look at who needs assistance more at this time, it would definitely be our working families, our households, Mr. Chair. And that's a compromise. I argued vehemently against the 1% rollback of the business privilege tax. And I think we should maintain it at 4.5% and assist our people with $1,000 grants per household. The grants, according to the SUFU program, are non-taxable and must be spent exclusively on physical residential hardening and storm preparation or recovery, such as but not limited to repairs to storm damage, typhoon shutters, plywood and/or reinforced doors, or emergency off-grid power systems, again, like generators, portable batteries, residential solar units, or food or storm supply replacement or replenishment. Financial assistance paid under the SUFU grant program shall be in addition to any financial assistance awarded under FEMA. And we've seen, Mr. Chair, we're not getting FEMA the way we used to. We're not getting even Red Cross assistance the way we used to. That's why I think at this time it's important that we stand together and provide direct assistance to our families. You know, when we rolled back the business privilege tax by 0.5%, I want to celebrate those small businesses that gave their employees increased wages. But for the most part, we didn't see lower prices at the stores, at the restaurants, or anywhere really. We didn't see a meaningful increase in wages. But we will see this money go back into our economy, Mr. Chair, and we will see our people receive this assistance. And so I ask the support of my colleagues, and I would like to amend my amendment, Mr. Chair. I noticed that unfortunately maybe the candlelight was not bright enough, but in the opening line, Section 2, Business Privilege Tax, I'd like to amend that to read, beginning on October 1st, 2026, the business privilege tax rate shall, and then I want to strike B and insert the words remain at 4.5%, period, and then strike through the rest of the sentence, Mr. Chair.
Does everyone understand the amendment to the amendment? The Barnett amendment to the amendment? Can you repeat your amendment to the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, if you look at the amendment, I went through and I struck out the reduction to 4%, but I failed to do that in the opening sentence, which reads that the business privilege tax rate shall be 4%. And so I'm just amending that first sentence to reflect the rest of the body of the amendment. And the amendment would read, the business privilege tax rate shall remain at 4.5%, period, and then everything else would just be struck out.
Does everybody understand the amendment to the amendment? Certainly can. I'm just making sure everybody understands it first. Okay, everybody knows what we're doing. On the amendment to the amendment, anyone wish to speak? Senator Parkinson, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the amendment to the amendment. I really think that, this BPT reduction that's happening, it's not happening for all businesses, because the majority of the businesses on the island already pay a lesser rate. I believe 91% of the businesses do. It's only the top 9% of businesses that are going to be experiencing a windfall from the reduction in the BPT. And so I just wanted to talk about how these top businesses are doing a little bit, as we consider the amendment to the amendment to keep it at 4.5%. One of the things that they did was they had a survey in the Guam Business Magazine. And then they had a survey that asked a bunch of questions. One of them, compared to 1 year ago, my company's bottom line is much better, somewhat better, about the same, somewhat worse, or much worse. In it, about 63% said that compared to 1 year ago, their company's bottom line is better or much better. Only about 36% of them said that it was about the same. None of these top businesses said that their bottom line was somewhat worse or worse. When asked 1 year from now what they expect their company's bottom line to be, about 63% of them said they expected it to be better, with only 27% saying that they think it would be the same. Less than 10% of these top businesses thought that they would be in a somewhat worse position. In the past 12 months, none of these major businesses have had a decrease in their staffing pattern, according to their own survey, with 72% of them increasing the number of workers that they're hiring. With many of them, 54% saying that they expected their staffing to increase in the coming years. 45% of them said their staffing would stay the same. 0% of them said their staffing would decrease. When asked if the economic expectations for their organizations were fulfilled, 81% of the top businesses said yes. When asked if they believe the economy will provide specific opportunities for their business in the coming year, 72% said yes. And here's what I thought was really interesting. When asked how close are you to your pre-pandemic position with all factors considered, a whopping 54% of the respondents said that they exceeded their pre-pandemic position. Exceeded. 18% reached their pre-pandemic position, with the minority of them being a year or two away from achieving pre-pandemic prosperity. But that's just such a stark number. A majority of the top businesses have exceeded their pre-pandemic positions by their own survey in the Marianas Business Journal. So these businesses are doing very, very well. And it wasn't so long ago that we did used to tax them 5%. They have been on a 4.5% rollback for less than a year. So it's just absurd, this notion that we can't consider a higher tax rate for these incredibly well-off businesses. So I support the amendment to the amendment. I urge my colleagues to keep the BPT at 4.5%. If I can convince you otherwise, I would advocate for more. But if we can find in the spirit of compromise to at least just keep it at the 4.5%, let's not be chopping off limbs of our future because we made promises to people in the business community. No one's trying to demonize the business community, but we need these revenues. We need these revenues, and these businesses are doing very, very well. And we just want everybody to pay their fair share, because there are problems on this island that are numerous and without end. Nobody here is campaigning on maintaining the status quo. Many of the people running in this body for higher office are doing it with change. And none of us are going to achieve that with less resources, with less revenue, with less tools to solve the many, many problems we have today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the amendment to the amendment, on the amendment to the Barnett Amendment, are there anyone that wishes to speak? You may close, Senator Barnett. Senator Chalahi, you're recognized.
I just want to say what I really appreciate about this amendment is that it's targeted to give $1,000 grants to everyday people. I think this is very important, and the rationale is because of Typhoon Bobby. And the cost, if we take what OFB and have been saying generally, is that the cost of the rollback of BPT is $40 million. The cost of $40 million is less than what we have put out for Typhoon Sinlaku, or Typhoon Mawar, Typhoon Sinlaku, and we did hear yesterday from BBMR, again, he threw in something about that they need more money for Typhoon Bobby. In fact, he made a whole list of things that he needed, and including, and which was a surprise to us, they need money for childcare. The child cares are going to close because they are not getting paid. Talk about taking care of employees, they are not getting paid. People are not able to take their children to these places because they're being told there is no money for them. the businesses. He said we need money. GMH needed 20 million last year. And we put some provision in last year's budget that they would get it in the future. They haven't got it yet. And now they're telling us yesterday that they might not get that till 2027, like November. That's not how we take care of GMH. That public safety was cut, according to BBMR. That DYA, that the residential treatment. And some people are proposing that that is just excessive. I think, if I heard it correctly, they were saying that the costs just keep growing and we can't do that. Well, these are residential treatment. These are folks who need help. Complex help in order to live. Or do we just want to let them sit on the side and die? The DISID needs help. Behavioral health, public health, even to match Medicaid, which has saved Guam. And I want to commend everyone who did the work to get us up to this cap, to use the cap, to use the amount of federal dollars that are available to us for Medicaid, to enroll people into Medicaid, to give them some coverage so that we lessen the amount of people who are going to GMH and not paying at all. And we increase the amount of people we can bill Medicaid for. Those are successes, but this budget purports to remove our ability, Guam's ability, to receive the maximum federal funds for Medicaid, for health care coverage. I can't imagine, how is that a good policy for anyone? We're trying to give doctors tax breaks if they take Medicaid to entice them, and then we're going to cut back the money for Medicaid? We're trying to take care of GMH for the non-paying people they see, and then we're going to cut back the money for Medicaid? We're actually trying to remove our cap. And that would be the next best thing that we do. But to underfund Medicaid, leave people without coverage, cut them off, and then cut MIP at the same time, so you're not going to cover them under Medicaid and you're not going to fund MIP. So poor people, they'll just die. And I think $1,000 is it's little to ask for what the people have faced and what they will continue to face based on predictions. The governor and the scientists, they agree that we are in a El Nino pattern that is going to bring storm after storm, and we have suffered through 3. And I think that any relief that we can bring to the people of Guam, we should bring to them. When it comes time to bringing relief to the businesses, we have done that. When it comes time to bringing relief to the businesses in Tumon, we have done that. When it comes time to bringing outright grants to businesses, we have done that with millions of dollars.
That's your time.
And so this is,
Thank you, Senator.
this is a very small amount for the people of Guam.
Thank you,
I
Senator.
support.
Senator Barnett, you may close.
So just wants the Mr. Chair for the opportunity to close. So it's really just a technical amendment that corrects an unfortunate oversight on my part, and it maintains the business privilege tax at 4.5%, which I think is very reasonable, Mr. Chair. Because of the military buildup, there's a lot of inflation in our economy, and I don't think that we really have an accurate read on the impact of the business privilege tax rollback of 0.5%. And when we talk about the problems that we face and the status quo budgets, to be able in this fiscal year to redirect these revenues straight into the pockets and purses of our working families is a worthy investment. As Senator Parkinson had said, in this hall we hear a lot of narrative about the businesses are closing. Mr. Chair, Guam is a tough business environment because our people don't have the ability to be like this with their money. So we have to be like my grandma. My grandma was like this with her money, very tight. So businesses have to be creative in how they attract their consumers. Some businesses close because of global trends, like duty-free shoppers. They're closing all over the world. Because even travelers around the world don't have the money to spend like they used to. So maintaining the business privilege tax at 4.5%, I think is prudent and reasonable. We're not stopping the rollback. We've already rolled it back for the biggest of the big businesses, and they received a $40 million windfall. And I don't believe that we really know where we're going to be. But what I do know is at this time, our people need help more than the businesses that already got it. Maintaining the business privilege tax at 4.5% in this fiscal year could lead to individual assistance for our households and our families. Next year, that revenue could be used for universal college, free training programs for our young adults. A lot of the problems we're facing require long-term solutions. But, Mr. Chair, long-term solutions require investment, require funding. And my colleague is right. If we want to exceed the status quo, if we want to dream big, then we need the resources to do it. And again, the 0.5% rollback, despite what some of my colleagues say, for the most part, and this came from the businesses themselves in the public hearing on the business privilege tax rollback. They said it's not going to lead to lower prices for our hardworking families. They said it wasn't going to lead to higher wages. So why should we roll it back another 0.5% if it's not truly going to benefit our working families? Instead, we should take these funds and put them directly in the pockets of our households in the form of $1,000 grants. Now, applicants must certify their household, one, experience a negative economic impact from Super Typhoon Sinlaku or Super Typhoon Bavi. Mr. Chair, many people who are on federal benefits like SNAP received reload after reload, supplemental additions to their SNAP benefits. But so many more of our people received nothing. Nothing. Some of our people can't afford to buy 3 days worth of food when the storm comes. And every time Landon Idlet says, Mawaris Child's Play or It's a Beast, you know what our people do? They run out and spend money they don't have just to be prepared. So I ask your support of this amendment, which again is not the main amendment. It's just to maintain the BPT at 4.5%, Mr. Chair. Sidus Masi.
On the amendment to the Barnett Amendment, are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, we are back to the main amendment. Main amendment. Anybody wish to speak on the main amendment? Not Senator Barnett, you can close.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to close.
Mr. Chair, I'll speak on the main amendment.
Senator Parkinson, folks, I'm going to say this once. I'll give the courtesy. When I say anyone, and there's no one, and I recognize the individual close, that's going to close it. I will give you the courtesy at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to rise in support of this overall amendment because, you know, we did go through some things here in the last few years. You know, between Mawar, Sinlaku, and now Bavi, there has just been a string of events that has constantly tested our people. And so, maybe in the spirit of compromise, instead of giving a permanent tax cut to these biggest of the big businesses, let us preserve this 4.5% and use the windfall from that to take care of our people, to start this program, this soft food grant program, the storm assistance for our people. Because if maybe not everybody needs it today, but if we have more storms, we could potentially need it in the future. And I know plenty of people who definitely need it today. And so I think this would be a well-served use of our public funds. And, for my colleagues who are concerned about growing the government, this is expressly trying to not do that. We're trying to put as much of this money back directly into our people's pockets. And this serves the businesses too. This serves the businesses that you are trying to serve by giving the community the resources to go out there and spend within the community. When you give a working class family resources to prepare for storms, they're going out there and they're spending that in our local businesses. So instead of giving this money directly to just the local businesses, give it to the consumers, give it to the people, because they're going to go out and spend that money, and it's going to trickle up to the businesses anyway. And so I wholly support this amendment, and I ask my colleagues to support it as well, because storm preparation is something that we need to give some thought and consideration and real resources to. It's not enough to talk about it or make it part of our slogans, but here we are in our budget season. We have an actual opportunity to put real money behind these concepts that we talk about, and we should. And we should. This is exactly the time to be talking about it. We are going through all these massive changes, and when the world is changing, you should change with the circumstances. I know many of you made promises to the Chamber of Commerce that you were going to reduce these BPTs. But you got to look at what's going on in our world, the things that are going on, to our gas prices, to the stability in the region. I think it would be prudent for us to pause on this notion of reducing these BPTs, cutting off long-term revenues. When we did it for 0.5%, that set us back $40 million in 1 year. If we were to do another 0.5%, that would be $80 million in 1 year. Meaning over the course of the 2 years, the people of Guam would have lost out in $120 million in government revenues that could be doing things to improve the community. You let that full percent go on another year, we're looking at a tag of $200 million in totality that we are shortchanging ourselves. By the end of the 39th legislature, if that 4% were to stick, we'd be down $280 million, $250 million, before the legislature itself turns 40. So we really need to think about what are we doing here? Because in the past, we have used the revenue from that BPT, and we have used it for temporary measures like putting money into the hospital or power credits or some sort of use for that money. But to give it away as a permanent tax cut to the biggest of the big businesses does not serve the people of Guam. Use it for something else if you have to. I can understand that. But to give a permanent tax cut, we are just, we are hamstring ourselves into the future. So please support this amendment, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Burnett, you can close on your amendment.
Mr. Chair, thank you for my colleagues who rose in support of the amendment. And just quickly, what it does is it keeps the BPT at 4.5% and takes the revenue that would have gone towards a further BPT reduction and uses that revenue to establish the Storm Assistance for You grant program. This grant program provides $1,000 grants to eligible households. Now, applicants to this program must certify their household, one, experienced a negative economic impact from Super Typhoon Sinlaku or Super Typhoon Bavi, or that their household requires funding assistance to improve preparations for future storms. And of course, they must certify their U.S. citizens and residents of Guam. Again, allowable purchases with this $1,000 grant per household are for physical residential hardening and storm preparation or recovery, typhoon shutters, plywood, reinforced doors or windows, generators. A lot of our people can't afford a one-time investment that it takes hundreds of dollars up to $1,000 for a generator. Like I said, a lot of our people can't afford to buy 3 days worth of food. And then when they do that, because we go days without power, they end up having to throw that food away. You made a promise to the Chamber of Commerce, you made a promise to the businesses that you would roll back the business privilege tax. You have fulfilled that promise. You have rolled it back by 0.5%. Now I'm humbly asking you to take the revenues that would go again to the businesses who get a second dip at the trough, and take those monies and put them directly into the pockets of our working families. One of my colleagues likes to say that the business privilege tax put money in the pockets of our families, but it didn't. It didn't, because that money stayed in the pockets of the big bosses. We didn't see the trickle down. And when you feel that trickle down, let me know, because we have not seen it when we go around and talk to people. They're struggling. And if we can support the businesses with $40 million, I don't understand why we wouldn't support our families and our households with the same amount of investment. Investment that's going to go into our economy. More importantly, investment that's going to help our people recover from these storms, help our people prepare for these storms. And we know more storms are coming. I wish there was a way we could get this money to the people today. When you do the Google or you do the Chat GPT, it's going to tell you that the El Niño is creating a lot of crazy weather around the world. And every one of these storms from Mawar to Bavi has been inching closer and closer and closer to a direct hit right here on our island. Look at the damage we've sustained from being skirted by these superstorms. Do we not owe it to our people to invest in them so that they could do better during these times of adversity? So they don't have to worry about the window blowing in. So they don't have to worry about how they're going to keep Nana's medicine cold. So they don't have to worry and stress about how they're going to fare in these storms. So we have an opportunity here, Mr. Chair, to truly support our people and our families. We have an opportunity here to cast a vote for Guam. We have an opportunity here to put Guam first. Trusted and tested leaders would support this investment in our people, because together we can. So let's go. Si Duos Masi, Mr. Chair.
On the Barnett Amendment, are there any objections? There's been an objection. All in favor of the Barnett Amendment, please raise your hand. Amendment fails. Colleagues, we are going to the next amendment. And actually, the next amendment is the Barnett Amendment. It is out of order, given the fact that his First Amendment did not succeed. So that one is complete. We are now on the Paris Amendment, SB 266 SFP L16 P22. Senator Paris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment's really simple. It just basically increases the, or it adds to what's required of the performance-based budgeting program. And so it's really clear from the audits that there's a government-wide problem when it comes to internal fiscal controls. And I think that it's important to ensure that the corrective action plans are put in place to address that, considering their potential for fraud if, if it's not caught, of course, as well as just timely reconciliation of the expenditures within our government, which would support budgeting, and also maybe do away with lapsed funds. It would also help with the ensuring that we are in compliance with federal grant requirements. So there are many benefits to including corrective action plans. The other thing that we see an issue with in government is the inadequacy of trained procurement professionals. And this is something that has been brought up for several years now. In fact, I did pass a law upon the public auditor's recommendation to have a compliance report when it comes to training. And the reason why that is important is because it helps to reduce protests. And so I think, as well as it would help streamline obtaining the necessary goods and services and construction works or construction that is needed for our island. And so I think that this is across the board that is needed within our government. And so what this amendment would do, it would add those two elements to the performance-based budgeting metrics, would be including corrective action plans, as well as to ensure there's an adequate number of trained procurement professionals within each agency. And so I ask for my colleagues' support.
On the Paris Amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Paris Amendment? Senator Terlahi, you recognize.
Yes, I just want to thank my colleague for an excellent amendment, and especially in light of the very serious findings of that audit that the OPA did, and that pretty much the entire population of Guam was shocked by. That's very simple things they could not comply with, or did not comply with, or just could care less about complying with, some including record keeping, and how the auditor just could not find the records. And so they ended up with question costs, other findings, and we, after much struggle, and after every audit, the auditor comes up with recommendations. But as he has testified, and those before him have testified, some of these recommendations, they're not implemented, they're ignored. And then year after year, we say, why is the government still working like this? Why is this still happening in the government? It's because they're not taking the recommendations and implementing them in the agencies. So we've already passed a law, thanks to my colleagues, that mandates that the audit recommendations are going to be followed. And I think they should be tracked. They should be put up online and tracked for all to see which agencies are really acting on those recommendations on a timely manner, as opposed to, ignoring them for the entire fiscal year. And then we have the same problem again in the next fiscal audit. So adding this simple mandate, simple but yet huge mandate, that that the corrective action plans based on audit recommendations provided by the public auditor are going to be included in the training program for all agencies for performance-based budgeting. It's a perfect fit. It's really a matter of accountability. It's going to show us whether they admit there is an issue and are willing to correct it, just like the performance-based budget is geared towards showing whether they admit and can see the goal of that agency and whether they are willing to meet it and how they are going to do that and how timely are they going to do that. And the same thing with procurement, that we can't perform under any budget if we cannot perform procurement fairly, wisely, for the benefit of the taxpayers, competitively, all of those things which we hope that procurement training will elicit from the agencies, that we would stop having inconsistent standards across different agencies, that we would stop having procurements where we hear the recordings saying, we're exceeding what we're authorized to do, but let's go to the legislature and get them to authorize more. And then we see senators who actually do that in the middle of a procurement. In the middle of a procurement for Simon Sanchez, come in here and change the terms for one contractor, but not for all the others who were bidding on it. It doesn't get more unfair than that. And that's not how to get value for the people of Guam, by changing the terms to increase amounts after the RFP. That doesn't make sense. That's why the people of Guam lose trust in the government, because agencies won't follow audit findings, and they keep having continued, repeated audit findings, and because procurement is inconsistent, and they want to blame the procurement law, when in fact, what the objections have been to these procurements is that they are not following the procurement law. And so hopefully these amendments will strengthen agency support and ability to follow the procurement law, and for the people of Guam to get value for their taxpayer dollars. And I support this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. On the Perez amendment, anyone else wish to speak? Senator Perez, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the comments of the residing speaker. I think, yes, this is really critical, as we know the impacts when government doesn't do what it should be doing. And in this case, the public auditor had this found the systematic problem with the government, that we haven't been ensuring that we are following how we're spending money, and we're not on top of the federal grants, as well as the procurement. I mean, from what I could see, there are different procurement protocols depending on which agency you look at. And it's really critical, if we are to move and improve consistently, no matter who's in office, no matter which personnel staff is at the desk, we want consistency. We need consistency when it comes to service to our people. And we need to improve. We cannot afford to ignore the recommendations. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for our community to come to these agencies and hear a different instruction depending on who's at the desk or what day. And so this should be really a metric. These metrics should be included to ensure consistency, so our people are not frustrated with government, that they get the service they deserve. And this simple amendment would do a lot to improve how government operates based on the findings and the studies of the public auditor, which takes a lot of effort to go through thousands and thousands of documents. And we cannot afford to ignore this anymore. And so this is critical to ensure that corrective action plans are continually followed, no matter who's at that desk. And to ensure that we are acting fairly when it comes to procurement. So businesses are not slighted or don't feel slighted and therefore protest because they know they were dealt with fairly. And we know protests delay capital improvement projects, and if it's delayed long enough, we may lose that opportunity, as we've seen with the solar farm at GPA, which prevailed. But in the end, the contractor said it took too long. And this is the impact when we do not have these metrics in place. We lose in the end. And so I ask for my colleagues' support. Ms. Masi.
On the Perez Amendment, are there objections? Perez Amendment passes. Senator Tadegui, this is the last amendment, colleagues, on Chapter 1, Revenues, and then we'll be moving on to Education. Senator Tadegui.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, everybody knows that what
Okay,
amendment
thank
it
you,
is.
Mr. Chair. And I know everyone's probably hungry for lunch right now, so I'll try and make this as quick. It's just a House cleaning house area in the budget bill to incorporate this amendment into the proper location that was also included in FY26's budget when it was put into place. And the reason why is because this loan that we're paying back actually is a loan from the Endowment Foundation and not from the University of Guam. However, the University of Guam does pay on the lease of this lease, kind of a lease of the lease, because how it basically went is they did not want to jeopardize the ceiling, our debt ceiling. So instead, they had the University of Guam go out and get a loan from USDA. So it's the endowment that's on the hook for this. But the agreement between them from the University of Guam is to pay a 1.158283 on this. So in the budget bill, it talks about a debt service continuing appropriation. I'm sorry. It talks about the, Section 7, debt service continuing appropriation, about the debts that government in Guam incurs. So after talking to OFB director, he said that there's no issue why to not put it under University of Guam, because it does not affect the debt ceiling as the other bonds that we cover do. And again, it's under the Endowment Foundation, which is not an entity of the government of Guam that is on debt for this USDA loan. So like in the FY26 budget, we're just moving the location of this to the University of Guam. And that's all what the amendment does.
On the Tadegui Amendment, anyone wish to speak? Senator Guntalto, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I object to this amendment. Many in this room were there smiling and clapping at the ribbon cuttings for the Student Success Center and the School of Engineering both this past January. Mr. Chairman, I watched both of those facilities go up well before I became a member of this body. Many of my former students at the English and Communications building across the way are now beneficiaries. Some in this room set the policies to make those two buildings a reality. This is not simply a question of where these dollars appear in the budget. It is a question of preserving the integrity of the government of Guam budget itself. Debt service payments have always been treated differently, because these are obligations that must be paid regardless of competing priorities in any given fiscal year. I helped prepare 10 budgets in 2 other branches of this government, and I'm well aware of why this particular section exists. The legislature authorized this financing structure through multiple public laws and made a policy decision that these leaseback payments supporting the University of Guam would be supported. Nothing has changed except that the facilities are now complete at UOG Station and the full debt payments will begin next fiscal year. Again, many in this room are a witness to the completion of those 2 UOG facilities. Mr. Chairman, the legislature has consistently placed obligations of this nature together, whether for GCC, GDOE, or other government capital projects. The University of Guam should not be carved out and treated differently when the underlying obligation is the same. What this amendment does is move this funding into UOG's operational budget, but it defunds. It is an allocation and muddies the distinction between a discretionary operating funding and a contractual financial obligations. These are 2 very different things. One can be adjusted based on available revenues, and the other represents a commitment that this government has already made, again, by some in this body today. For the sake of sound budgeting and consistency in treating this new obligation the same as with GCC and GDOE, Mr. Chair, I respectfully object to this amendment. Thank you.
On the tie degree amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the tie degree amendment? Senator Chulai, you recognized?
Yes, I'd like to ask if the previous speaker would yield as to the previous commitment that was made.
Senator Gumitato, do you yield to that question? He's not going to yield, Senator.
All right, then if I
You
could
can
have a
proceed.
1-minute recess just to check the laws that are being cited here, please.
We are in a 1-minute recess.
Thank you.
The committee of the whole is back in order. Colleagues, for your information, I have received some research, multiple public laws, including public laws 31-277, 32063, 32120, and 33-92. So we will continue. Senator Tulay, you are recognized at this time.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't understand what was that again? It's kind of hard to hear back here. Okay. You've heard public laws about what?
I have received information, and you can do your research. Public laws, including public laws 31-277, 32063, 32120, and 33-92 that have made commitments that the government of Guam, through the general fund, will fund the debt service for the construction of the buildings that are now completed, not the operating budget of UOG. Senator Tulay, you're recognized at this time.
Mr. Chair, could I please request a recess to look at that last one you said? That's not listed in this floor amendment, and the ones that are listed here are inconsistent with what you're saying. So I'd just like to verify 33-92.
You're recognized to proceed on the amendment, Senator.
Well, can you read then the public law that you're citing?
Senator, I cited them. You can do your research. I've made a ruling that they are applicable, that we're moving forward with this amendment.
All
Senator,
right. Well,
you're
can I
recognized
take a
on the
recess?
amendment.
Can we take a recess so we can look at those, Mr.
Senator,
Chair?
we have determined that it is the obligation of the government. You are recognized on the amendment.
No, you have determined. Can we have that opportunity to just look at the law?
Senator, the amendment is in order. You are recognized on the amendment.
All right. Well, the amendment says that it's based on Public Law 31-277. Public law, and the previous speaker said we had a prior commitment. That's not recognized in Public Law 31-277. It says very, very clearly UOG is going to make these payments, and the whole structure is outlined very, very clearly, and how we're going to minimize the cost to the university by going through the foundation, all of that. And I do not recall us doing this for GCC either. When GCC goes out for their loans, they unless it's for something that the legislature wants to build, GCC takes care of their own financing. That's the whole purpose of why we transferred the property, or the legislature, previous legislatures transferred the property to the USDA, because they use that as collateral. But without being able to see the other laws that you're citing, and without you allowing us to have a recess to at least look as to what we are doing, or why the legislature is changing the financing that was cited here in Public Law 31-277, I just like to have that ability to double check. Otherwise, it is a very big impact, and otherwise people in here get to say things that aren't even true, like prior commitment or same as GCC. And I just like to verify those things before we act on them. And I don't understand what is your issue, Mr. Chair, of not allowing us to have a recess to look these laws up. If you believe that they are compelling, then we would act reasonably. But to hide them from us and to make a big, protest over us looking them up is just really, I don't understand. You want us to act blindly on behalf of the people of Guam? Yeah. Go ahead and smirk. But it's a simple thing. If you can cite to us where that obligation exists, then I think it would help us to make a decision whether to act for or against the amendment, Mr. Chair.
Are you done?
No.
Okay, you can continue then. You still have some time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Point of information. You said, Mr. Chair, that you would call, as soon as we get back, you would call OFB to come inside to ask some questions.
You can make that request at this time.
Again, may I ask that
we are still entertaining, after I complete.
Which,
yes.
The current speaker may have questions for OFB
The current speaker
as well.
can then ask OFB some questions.
Thank
we
you.
will
Appreciate
continue right now with the current speaker's deliberation on the amendment.
Oh, yes. I'd like to ask OFB to come in here so we can continue to deliberate on this amendment, please, as you promised that they would be here throughout our proceeding.
Yes, we are now bringing in OFB by request. We are debating revenues, which they were here for to discuss. And so, yes, we can bring them in at request, and then they'll be back for other chapters. We're in a 30-second recess. The legislature is back in order. Senators, I'm going to read a public law that I referenced earlier, and OFB will continue to also expound on this since we were asked where's the research and where's the information. Senators, Public Law 33-92, and this is I. The sum of $1,158,283, and then it has the enumeration, beginning fiscal year 2015 for the construction of the Student Services Center and the Engineering Annex Facility at the University of Guam as a source of payment to the University of Guam Capital Improvement Fund for the purpose of paying rental payments due under the leaseback agreement with the University of Guam Endowment Foundation for the term of 40 years, including any leaseback agreements entered into in the construction with the interim financing. This appropriation is here, and it's also enumerated for 40 years in this general fund appropriation. Senator Chulai, you recognize.
Yes, and so this public law that you cite, Public Law 3392, makes it very, very clear that this is an obligation of the University of Guam, and that if they are unable to obtain financing before this deadline that they talked about, that this appropriation was going to be made. But this appropriation that you read is $1,158,283 versus what we have in the bill as $65,491,373.
Senator, that's completely incorrect. It
is sorry, that's a grand total.
Through.
Okay.
Yes, this is the same appropriation.
All right.
You stand corrected.
Yes, and so so what they did at the time in order to make this appropriation was they used the increase in recent valuation to cover the appropriation for during this calendar years, and that it's subject to annual appropriation of this amount. But we have not been the recipients of a new tax evaluation, and like the author of the amendment said, this is not something that, it's very clear if you read the earlier parts of the public law that you cited, that the obligation of the university to make lease payments, that's in subsection K, and then above that, the leaseback agreement shall require that the university be responsible for the procurement and oversight of the design and construction. Universities authorized to grant rights of way, blah, blah, blah. To minimize the financing costs to the university, the foundation has applied to USDA for the loan with the base rental. And I don't want to read all of it to you, but if you keep going, it says that that the legislature approves of that loan that the university is going to be obligated for. But in no event shall it exceed the $1,158,283. So I think what you cited was, yes, that the legislature in that year, years ago, in fact, authorized from revenue that they had received, and that was a boost back then of from reevaluation of the taxes, to pay it for that 1 year, and I think that was in the beginning, so that they could secure the financing. But these leaseback payments, I think, according to this, is still very clearly under the obligation of the University of Guam. And that's why, again, the land was transferred to the endowment fund, so that the endowment fund would be the one to take the loan, because they didn't want that to be an obligation of the taxpayers of Guam. So that they would use the loan the land. We transferred the land to them. They were going to use the land as collateral for their loan. All of those benefits were transferred to them in order to save the people of Guam from the costs.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, this is debt service obligation, and the reason why it's coming to fruition now is because we have to start paying the loan for 40 years. On the Taitagui Amendment, no one else wishing to speak. Senator Taitagui, you can close.
Mr. Chair, first, this is just housekeeping measure, just putting it in an area that's located. So maybe I'm wrong, because I asked OFB director that if this area in Section 7 is debt service continuing appropriation for fiscal year for the government of Guam, this pertains to how much we have in debt in our debt ceiling. It determines that. This, for the University of Guam, is not under the government of Guam. It is under the Endowment Foundation, which is not government of Guam. So this does not affect our debt ceiling, this loan. I had the opportunity to talk as the oversight chair of GITA to get a full explanation on how this transpired and what was done. Then I did talk with OFB about the FY26 budget. We're included in FY26 in Section 13, which is what you see on the amendment, the exact same language, putting it in that location. So I guess my question is to Steve. When you talk about Section 7, debt service continuing appropriation for fiscal year, do all these areas affect the debt ceiling? All these things all the way up to K, which is the amendment in question, does it affect the debt ceiling?
Anything reflected under the debt service in an annual budget basically is inclusive of and is considered part of the debt ceiling. So the answer is yes.
So you're saying K, which is an obligation from an endowment foundation, affects, because according to GITA, this amount does not affect the debt ceiling.
Senator, the reason why this particular debt service is under the debt service of the Budget Act is because our intent was to pay this debt service out of the general fund. Your concern now is to change the funding source of this debt, not from the general fund, but now to the, I believe, from my understanding, is the endowment.
No, Steve. If you look at the amendment,
I'm answering your question why it's in the debt service
No, you're
section.
just saying that it's the endowment. No, the University of Guam is required to pay this, required to the endowment foundation. They made an agreement.
Yes.
That because they went out and got the loan from SDA. The endowment foundation did. That's not a government of Guam entity. That's a foundation.
So based on what you just said, Senator, then I'm assuming then the source of fund would be the endowment, if the endowment foundation is the one that went out and secured this loan.
Yes, that's right.
So when we prepared the budget, it wasn't the endowment foundation that we were thinking that it was going to be obligated to pay for the debt. It was the general fund. Thus, putting this particular debt service under this debt service category in the budget. That's why it's there.
Steve,
but if you want to change the funding source from the general fund to the endowment or to the University of Guam and have them be responsible for it.
No, Steve, don't try to say that I'm trying to take away from the general fund, because no matter what, if it's in this section or if it's in the section of the University of Guam, it's still coming from the general fund. The payment is still coming from the general fund. It's not coming from anywhere else but because we appropriate money to the University of Guam from the general fund. In
Yes.
fact, this year they got an increase of almost over $4 million increase to the University of Guam. So last year,
And I can explain how we came up with the $4 million if you would like me to
well,
explain
no,
that.
let's just stick with what I guess when we get to University of Guam, we can talk about that. I'm definitely going to talk about how that was increased and why. But right now, we're talking about this particular amendment that just places it in here because it's an endowment foundation obligation of SDA loan, not the University of Guam. Now, the University of Guam, within, like last year, they have the ability to pay off that yearly payment to the endowment. The question was the debt ceiling. All these in Section 7 of the budget bill talks about debt ceilings and obligation that the government of Guam went out. Even GCC had the same opportunity, but GCC on their own fruition, not using their endowment individuals in the Guam Community College, but themselves as a government. So that's what I'm saying. I wanted to just put things in order that shows, okay, this area is all what we owe in loans that were taken out by the government of Guam. This is not a loan by the government of Guam. It's a loan that was given to the endowment. Now, University of Guam has an agreement with the endowment association to pay them a yearly amount of 1.15. That's between them. That's why I'm saying you put this under the University of Guam so you don't confuse it with the debt ceiling, with bonds that the government of Guam is indebted to.
Senator, if you look at the debt service, I believe there's 10 of them in this section, you would also see a debt service for Guam Community College, and you'll also see a debt service for Guam Education.
Yeah, but that's all government of Guam
And
agencies.
like you said,
the
it's general
Endowment
fund.
Foundation is not a government of Guam agency.
But it's paid out of the general fund. No matter it's an outright appropriation or it's money given to the endowment from the general fund, it's the general fund.
Right,
We just categorize it in this section.
Yeah,
But
that's
if you
all it
want to
does.
move it to
But
the
okay,
department
one
section,
real
I
quick
have no
question,
problem.
Steve. One real quick. Steve, letter K that talks about this loan, okay? It's very, very simple. Did the government of Guam go out and get a loan from on the 2023 USDA lease that is identified under Section K that says USDA lease? Did the government of Guam or the University of Guam go out and get a loan from USDA?
Thank you, Senator. That's your time. Answer the question.
The University of Guam, did they?
Yes, go ahead.
Senator, I would like to think that the University of Guam is probably part of the government of Guam. Any commitments made by any government entity is the responsible of the government of Guam to pay for those obligations. So your answer is yes. Government of Guam did go out.
No, they didn't. It was the Endowment Foundation. You talked to Tina Garcia over at the GITA, who helped them. It was not UOG. It was the Endowment Foundation, which is a foundation created on its own. It's not a government entity.
But you referenced University of Guam.
Because they made a deal with the Endowment Foundation, which is fine. But it's not credited in our debt ceiling. It doesn't belong in this section.
Thank you, Senator.
And if you guys want to argue the point,
asked and
I
answered.
can prove it.
Yeah.
You know, we can bring Gita
Senator,
down
thank
here.
you. Question is asked and answered. There is an objection to the Taidegui amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please indicate by
May I
raising
speak
your
on
hand.
the amendment?
No, she's closing, Senator. I'm sorry.
I
You
thought
had your opportunity.
she had
No,
questions
this
for
was just
the
to
panel.
talk
She's
to Steve,
closing.
not at a
She's
closing.
closing on her. She closed on her amendment.
It wasn't clear. 'Cause she-
Mr. Chair, I
Yeah.
was asking for Steve to come in to ask questions that you offered him to do. I wasn't closing.
I recognize you to
Everything
close,
was
Senator.
discussed on questions.
I recognize you to close, Senator. I did.
Yeah, it wasn't.
There was nobody
it
else that
wasn't-
wanted to speak. I recognized you to close, and I brought in Steve.
It wasn't
There was
mentioned.
an objection to the amendment. All in favor of the category
well, I
amendment?
challenge the
please
chair. I challenge the chair.
There is a challenge to
Point of
overrule the
inquiry,
chair.
Mr. Chair. Point of inquiry.
I am recognizing this first, Senator. There is a rule. There's a motion to override the chair on the decision of the close. All in favor to override the chair, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion fails. There's been an objection to the amendment. All in favor of the Tadigui amendment, please
inquiry,
indicate
Mr.
by
Chair.
raising your hand.
There's a
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chair.
What is your point of inquiry, Senator?
Yes, if OFB can just tell us what Section 2 of the public
You
law
had your
that you
time to
cited
question OFB,
said.
Senator. That's out of order.
Yes, but this came up with what they were just
Senator,
saying.
that's out of
It
order.
says the lease and leaseback agreements shall be valid
Yes.
and binding obligations of the university and the foundation, enforceable in accordance with their respective
Point
terms.
of order, Mr.
Senator,
Chair.
that's out of
Point
order.
of order, Mr.
Yes.
Chair.
What is the order?
But I want to
Mason's
know.
legislative
There is
manual,
an
Mr.
office,
Chair,
also, Mr.
Section
Chair.
253.
Point
I
of
just wanna
order,
know
Mr.
if
Chair.
Information
They
from
agree with
members.
that.
Yeah, point of
Number
order. We've got
5,
individuals who
the
work for the
presiding
University of
officer,
Guam
Mr.
who have a
Chair,
conflict of
should never
interest
permit a
that
speaker
needs to
heckled
be
by
addressed.
questions, nor permit a member to present arguments under the guise of
Mr.
questions.
Chair,
Thank you,
I
Mr.
would
Chair.
like that those
I'm
who
not
are
permitting
working for the
arguments. I want
University of Guam, who
the
are sitting in this
OFB
session hall, be recognized as a conflict of interest. They work for the University of Guam. This is unfair, and they should recognize that they work for the University of Guam.
There has been an objection to the Tadigui amendment. All in favor of the Tadigui amendment, please indicate by raising your hand.
Mr. Chair, my inquiry
Motion
to
fails. We are in
OFB.
recess.
Mr. Chair.